Mr. Armstrong for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Timmons.
Thank you, my friend. We seem to keep having the same conversation, and you're trying to use all these different statistics and all these different comparisons to all these other states where the criminal penalties that you imposed have a similar or disparate effect. So you're missing the point. We have a problem. We have a real problem. It doesn't matter what you think you intended to do, what you wrote. The problem is that in the last 2 hours, there's been shooting in Southeast 3 miles from here where someone was killed and someone was taken to the hospital. Multiple carjackings in the last 2 hours. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, this is out of hand. So instead of talking about how what you did was not bad, when, again, 250 members of Congress, 81 senators, and the president disagree with you, let's talk about what we're going to do. What can you do to tell the people of Washington, D.C. that we're safe, that if somebody commits a crime, they're going to be held accountable, and it's going to be in a manner that will deter future people. So what's the plan? And Councilman Allen or Councilman Mendelson?
I really appreciate the question, Congressmember. As part of this conversation, I think it's the first time, and I really appreciate it, of saying what are the steps we can take, what are actions we can take, so thank you. As I talked about in my opening statement, we have one of the most poorly designed, dysfunctional criminal justice systems in the District of Columbia. We do not have control over a federal U.S. attorney who makes charging decisions. We do not have any control or accountability for a federal Bureau of Prisons. We don't have any accountability for supervision agencies.
Real quick, I appreciate all those issues. Instead of saying things you don't control, what do you control? Because you control how many law enforcement officers are being forced out because of your policies, and he's saying that 400 this year will be forced out. They'll resign because they don't want to deal with it. So what do you control that you can actually create a safer D.C.? What is within your purview?
We are continuing to fund the hiring of police officers, for example. What we would like to be able to do, which I think is the spirit of the conversation today, is how are we trying to solve problems together? And in that, because we have such a system that is dependent upon federal agencies that we have no accountability for, we are unable to control, they won't even show up to our hearings when we talk about balanced public safety, those are actions in your hands.
So let me put a little flesh on that. There's a Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. I sit on that. That's all the law enforcement agency heads, federal and D.C. I have several times presented to them my proposal for what we can do to reduce violent crime, gun crime in particular, and that is that the U.S. Attorney establishes a gun prosecution unit, that the Superior Court establishes a gun court. We have seen that there is a higher success rate and quicker prosecutions and convictions when there is a gun court and a gun prosecution unit. We have no control over the U.S. Attorney or the Superior
I'm happy
Court.
to address structural changes, but that's a longer conversation.
But that would reduce gun violence.
What you can do is you can publicly and openly support law enforcement, fund them, and facilitate an environment that they actually want to be a part of.
Well, I do support them, and Mr. Allen does, and the council does. We have funded their budgets fully the last couple of years.
The police union disagrees with everything you've said and is taking a completely different position. I want to talk about one more thing. Homelessness in Washington, D.C. is out of control. Vagrancy facilitates a higher degree of criminality. If you are down on your luck and you are sleeping in the street, you have a higher propensity to commit a crime. That's just the way it works, and it has been shocking the degree and how widespread homelessness has become. What can you do to help these people? They need help. They don't need to sleep in a park for months and years. They need opportunity. They need to be able to get out of the position they're in. What can you do to address that?
The best answer to homelessness is safe and stable housing. And so we've been working to create vouchers to get people into safe and stable housing. That's going to be the solution to help people in. If I can answer one quick question that you had also asked about policing. Please keep in mind, the revised criminal code that we passed increased the criminal penalty for assaulting a police officer from 10 to 14 years. This body overturned that.
You've got 3 main issues: murders, armed robberies, carjackings. If anybody commits any of those, you should tell everybody in D.C. that you're going to go to prison for a very, very long time. That's the solution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I agree, but the cases don't get charged, and that's the U.S. Attorney's decision.
So I've got 10 seconds and running between a bunch of things, but I just would like to point something out from my side of this. I spent 10 years as a criminal defense attorney. I think if you ask everybody in this town, I am one of the Republicans who believes significantly in serious, smart criminal justice reform. Y'all are making it a lot harder to do that. With that, I yield back.